Hello, everybody. My name is Drew Dosek, and welcome to Trading the Close. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I do this show Monday through Thursday at 3:55 live. If you subscribe, you'll get a notification when we do go live. All right, guys. So this week, so far, it's been a slow start to the week, only one day. But this week, we've got a lot of data that's going to be released. Tomorrow morning, we've got our core inflation data being released at 8:30. Wednesday morning, we've got our PPI month-over-month data. And then Thursday, we've got retail sales. And finishing off Friday, we've got housing data and housing start permits at 8:30 in the morning. Plus, we've got Michigan consumer sentiment at 10 o'clock. So each one of those reports could move the markets. Write those down. Understand that they're going to be there this week on the calendar. And then to add it off, we've got earnings, folks. Tomorrow morning, we've got a lot of banks kicking off earnings. Wells Fargo, Citi, BlackRock, JP Morgan. That should kickstart earnings season and really get some volatility going in this month of July. So let's jump into the market summary to see how the market did today. We can see here the Dow Jones is up 0.32%. NASDAQ is up 0.24%. S&P 500 now up 0.27%. U.S. oil is retreating down 2.54%. Gold is retreating also down 0.34%. But Bitcoin hit brand new all-time highs and then is now retreating also. But it's still up for the day, up 0.64%. We're going to get into that chart here in a little bit to show you what I'm seeing that could happen. Into the S&P 500 heat map, we see here Apple is down today, but really we've got a little mixed bag of greens, grays, and reds. Mobile and energy that you see down here, ExxonMobil, CVX, all down with Chevron down 2.43%. Meta is flat. Microsoft's basically flat. Google slightly up. AVGO is slightly up. GE's having a good push today, now up 2.62%. P&G down 2% today. Pretty decent fall on that. And that stock's actually getting near a buy area in territory. All right, so let's jump into the S&P 500 and see where we're going right now. And as you see, we really aren't moving much from last week. We're still stuck right up here above this inclining trend line right here that you see on the screen right at 62.46. So far, the markets are doing all right. I still think that we could push a tad higher on the S&P 500, potentially tagging this inclining trend line right here at 63.41. There's going to be a spider web of resistance right up here. Now, keep in mind, we're at all-time highs. Another push up would accomplish new all-time highs, but then likely we'll get more investors on board for the institutions to start taking profits and using those retail investors as exit liquidity. Next up, we've got the Qs. Qs very much like the S&P 500, putting in this bullish consolidation. Now, one thing to note too, whenever we're at high ends of the charts and you see bullish consolidation, this consolidation usually fails at the high end of the chart. And so to see this happen at the highs of the chart is another reason telling me we need to come down on these charts. We're just pushed too high, too fast, and prices on certain stocks, especially tech, are kind of way out of the realm where they should be. Valuations aren't making sense. So we should have some sort of pullback. We'll see if that happens. Again, July, lighter volume, but we do have some volatility creeping up this week. This week may be the week where we break this bullish flag pattern and start coming down further on the charts. Next up, SMH. SMH tried and attempted to break down today. But you notice too, we've been highlighting this fact for a while, like this inclining parallel channel right here was going to be where all the major resistance is on the SMH chart. Yes, we are at all-time highs. We just hit all-time highs last week. And then this week, you can see the reflex of that all-time high pierce. And then we were coming down on the charts. But today's price action, as you see here, really has saved itself. Price dropped down beneath one of the trend lines and then went back up and has tested that trend line again and then since got rejected further. So let's take a look at the daily chart. You can see this area, this trend line right at 286.43 is really the line in the sand for the immediate and near future for SMH. SMH is a leading indicator. Pay close attention to this index moving forward for any hints at any sort of cracks in the glass that we may potentially start falling down a little bit further on the charts. IWM here is still doing great, had a fantastic day in recovery from this last Friday, now pushing back above this declining trend line. If you notice here too, last week we pushed up and confirmed. So that told me the likelihood of us staying in this range was actually higher than pushing back down. Even though IWM didn't retest this trend line, this was a strong break and confirming move. I'm still thinking that price could and has a good chance of staying up here, as the small caps do have a lot of room to run. At the same point, with this extended move, if the markets really see heavy selling pressure, this is going to be the next area of support for continued bounce up further on the IWM. As I said, IWM has a lot of room to run. We're not at all-time highs, and the other indices are. So this area will attract a lot of investors when they're taking profits from some mega cap stocks. Next up, Bitcoin. Now, here is the story of the day, folks. Bitcoin ripping to brand new all-time highs. But you know what? You knew about this. You knew that these levels were going to be hit. I was showing this just a couple weeks ago on the charts, and then boom, here we are today, and it's happening. So right back into the charts, we highlighted this inverse head and shoulders pattern on Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin had a measured move up here to $121,615. Today, boom, accomplished that feat. And then since doing so, it has sold straight off, almost creating a daily topping tail at the top of the charts of Bitcoin. If we have a daily topping tail, that is going to be significant. You'll not need to be reminded any further than our next chart with gold. What happens when a daily topping tail occurs on the chart? The most immediate support, now this is going to be a little speed bump if price starts selling off, is going to be the top end of this parallel channel at $118,717. The next area of support, which is more likely for Bitcoin to go to, if we do get a confirmed topping tail tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, the next area of support I think Bitcoin's going to is $113,400. That's what the charts are showing. Now, into gold, as I said, what happens with the daily topping tail at the highs of the charts? Well, we see further downside price action ever since this topping tail was registered, and we're now going back. Let's see here. We're going back 57 trading days. So a total of 57 trading days. Price has not gotten back up to that daily topping tail at the high of the charts. Is that going to happen over here on Bitcoin? That's to be determined. But if anything is proven, is history shows us what likely will happen on charts, and topping tails do also imply further downside on the chart. So that's likely going to be the case for Bitcoin if, again, we get an 8 o'clock close with a topping tail there. Into gold, we see gold here really not doing much and not changing much from last week's price action. Support area will be here on this trend line of 32.42, and we do have potential, still a chance of price moving up, tagging the all-time highs at 3,500 and moving up to the measured move of 36.21. Right now in this area, gold's a no touch for me. Next up, silver. Now here is another one, guys. We've been talking about this move since over here, since back in May, on May 20th, when silver did break out of this inverse head and shoulders pattern. And I know it might have seemed like a really tall order to be made here on silver for price to move all the way up to this measured move target. But believe me, when these patterns show you what's going to happen, you got to understand and anticipate the likelihood and probabilities of price action doing exactly what it's showing you. And it did. It moved straight up in a matter from May 20th here into the middle of July, tagged the measured move today, and notice what happened. Very similar reaction to what happened in Bitcoin when it hit its measured move. I'm not the only one that does technical analysis. Other traders are also seeing this pattern and noticing when time is up. We have a measured move, so time to hit that sell button for anybody that got into silver here. Now, the first areas of support, if silver comes back down, we're looking at $36.58, followed by this $34.86 support trend line, which did mark the recent highs from back in October of last year. Next up, U.S. oil. As I said, U.S. oil is starting to retreat further today, now trading at 66.92. We see, though, this is all inside bar bearish consolidation. The likelihood of oil going lower is higher than it bouncing up and moving up on the charts. The area of support I'm watching that I'm most interested in is this declining trend line down here, roughly about $60.42, implies about 10% downside on oil in the near to midterm. Next up, we've got Nat Gas. Nat Gas here over the last 3 trading days has seen a nice bounce up, trying to form a V-shaped recovery pattern. First test for it's going to be right here, $3.55. And this is the area I'm really watching because Nat Gas really does like to move when it gets up, when it gets and picks up steam. So it can push through this resistance area as it is the first one moving up. Next one that I would likely see resistance and price stop at is $3.95, created by this inclining trend line that you see right here on the charts. Next up, the 10-year yield also did push higher today, but notice where price is. It looks like it's about to close here in about an hour and a half. So we'll have to watch this tomorrow, but see what I found? We've got a small inverse head and shoulders pattern that's currently formed on this 10-year yield chart. If you look at this measured move does put us up here at 4.683, which would break current trend line, as well as this next resistance trend line and the most recent highs that we've had here in May of 25. So this measured move would be significant, and it would also put pressure on any sort of large purchases that are being made and people looking to borrow cash as the interest rates are going to be going up according to what's displayed here on the chart. We'll see if we get a confirming close tomorrow. And then if we're going to have any sort of move higher, probabilities will then dictate a move to 4.683 on the 10-year yield. Next up, OKLO. OKLO is an energy play, especially for all the new data centers being built for AI. This is a big player in helping to supply all that energy for some of those data centers. And today, OKLO really ripped off. You could see here, price was coming down, had a daily topping tail up here at the highs. Price got rejected, came back down underneath this trend line, and it was starting to put in bearish consolidation. But today, we ripped right out of that bearish consolidation. And normally what happens when you have a failed move, you have a biggest move in the opposite direction. So you see here, we're pushing now up above $62. Next resistance area is $64.58, followed by $70.87, where it looks like OKLO is headed in the near to midterm. Next up, APP. Now, APP is up 6.21% for the day. One of the biggest movers for the mega cap stocks today. However, as you see here, are actually the larger cap, 100 billion and larger, and 10 billion and larger, really. So of the larger companies, this had one of the biggest moves. But if you look at the daily chart, this is just all downward move and bearish consolidation on the chart. Notice where price is consolidating too. It's consolidating right here on this very long-term trend line that extends back nearly to the beginning of this chart's origin. So price is really being magnetized right here at the current state and is catching support. If you also notice why price pierced this area and caught support still, all you have to do is notice the next pivot, draw it over to the very next pivot, and see here with this trend line, we've had price come down, hit the brakes, bounce up, come down, hit the brakes again, bounce up. Didn't quite tag it this last time, but is still bouncing up and pushing higher on the charts. APP is being resilient at the current state, and it's mainly because of all the support that's right down here on the charts. Now, this bear flag measured move does insinuate that price could go down to 254.96. At that point, that would be a great buying opportunity, especially if we see a decline, much like what we've seen on the top end of this pivot, moving down and creating that consolidation. If we see a straight move right down into that area, that would be a great opportunity to go long on APP. Now, next up, I've got several cryptocurrencies, and I'm doing so today because Bitcoin is making brand new all-time highs. Now, with Bitcoin, it has all the spotlight in the crypto sector. Bitcoin is paid attention to by a myriad of crypto investors, but basically almost all of them, right? And it really controls the momentum of which way cryptocurrencies go. Now, a lot of altcoins are very beaten up on their charts and have a lot of room to run. So with this brand new all-time high of Bitcoin, if it can stay moderately high, I imagine that a lot of other investors will start finding these better plays and get into those altcoins. So let's look at a few altcoins that I like for the near to midterm. First up, XRP. Now, XRP, if you notice here, we have an inverse head and shoulders pattern outlined by this blue trend lines here on the chart. This dotted neckline going diagonally down is the neckline for this inverse head and shoulders pattern. You can see XRP broke out comfortably this last week on July 9th, just started pushing higher, never even retraced, never really even paused, except for right here at this inclining trend line, put in 1 day of pause and then continued marching up. Now notice down here on the bottom, the RSI extremely overbought in the near term on the daily chart, 82.58, even with the pullback today from price above $3. So what what this is telling me, though, is that this inverse head and shoulders pattern in XRP is likely going to go up to $3.59. That's the measured move for this pattern. But we've gone too far too fast. A pullback is more likely now before we continue momentum and move up to that measured move. So this presents buying opportunities now with XRP, highlighted by each one of these levels you see here on the chart. First one at $2.73, followed by $2.56, and lastly at $2.32. All three of those areas would be great buying opportunities for a continued move up to this measured move at $3.59. Next up, we've got Solana. Solana here that you see is putting in bullish consolidation over the last 4 trading days. Also notice at the bottom of the screen, we're not nearly overbought on the daily time frame like we are on XRP. XRP is way up in 86. We're still down here in 60. That tells me Solana has some room to run. In addition, we have an inverse head and shoulders pattern right here as well with a measured move target of 199.58. We are, though, getting caught up on resistance with this inclining trend line right here that you see on the chart from the daily pattern pivot low of January of 2024 all the way through this pivot here on August 5th of 2024. And you connect that all the way out, and you notice that's where price hit today, as well as it hit on Friday of last week on July 11th. So this is all bullish consolidation. As long as price stays above this declining trend line, which is the neckline of Solana, probabilities dictate that we are going to be moving up to 199.58. Let's see if we have more consolidation over the coming days and have that bull flag pattern play out, break us above this resistance area, and then march right up to that measured move target of 199.58. Next up, we've got Cardano. Cardano here, very similar to Solana, is struggling against a resistance trend line at the moment. Now, this is a little bit overbought in the near term. Makes sense that we would poke above, maybe pierce like we have, and then start consolidating right around this declining trend line where current price is located. We should have a few more days of consolidation, and that would gain momentum for a push higher up to the next level of resistance at 93 cents. But great move here on Cardano. If we do pull back any further, support area on Cardano is going to be a pierce of 60 cents, right at 59 cents. Next up, we've got Avalanche. Now, Avalanche here, too, is running right into his resistance trend line, but much like Solana, it still has some room in the tank that it could run up a little bit further. Now, we've poked above this resistance trend line before, and we've stayed up there for a few days, but have since come right back down underneath. This very next attempt, this line is extremely weakened with all the times price has gone back and forth throughout it. So the next push, we could very easily find ourselves on top of that trend line and easily march up there to $24.44, as I think that is a great near-term target also on Avalanche. Last up, we've got SUI. Now, SUI today put in a breakout candle. Notice here on the charts of the daily chart from a pivot high back here in January of 2025, connected over to the most recent pivot lows in May of 25. And then we have price action accelerating above that today. We need to see a confirming move tomorrow or in the coming days. And if we get that, that will change this trend line from resistance into support. And that would mean support is at $3.69. But we need to see price action move a little bit higher on the charts in the coming days for that area to be the solid support for a buying opportunity up to the next resistance level at $4.58. If we do not see a confirming move, the next area support on SUI is going to be down here at $3 flat. So it's critical we get that confirming move in the coming days for any bulls there on SUI. All right, guys, that wraps up Trading the Close. As a reminder, don't forget to like and subscribe the video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll have more information and trade setups for you tomorrow. Until then, you guys have a great rest of the day.